Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and we have a very interesting guest, and I'm delighted to have with us today Ted Baehr. He's the chairman of the Christian Film and Television Commission Ministry and the director of its Family Guide to Movies and Entertainment, Movie Guide. And we want to talk to him today about the rise of violence in movies as far back as 1950 until where we are today, 2013, and in particular, the rating system and gun violence. And so, Ted, nice to have you with us. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Great to be with you today.
Yeah. Interesting topic. I don't think there's any doubt that the violence in movies, and especially gun violence, has gone up since 1950. How much?
Well, there are two things that happened that drove up the violence. One, in 1965-66, the Protestant Film Office shut down. During the golden age of Hollywood, when Mr. Smith went to Washington, it was a wonderful life, and my father was a star, Bob Tex Allen, in the first Texas Ranger series in the 30s, and my mother was a star. During those days, the church was a serious player behind the scenes, not just the Protestant Film Office, but the Catholic Film Office and the Jewish Film Office. And what they did is they didn't have any censorship powers, but they would tell them, look, how many empty seats do you want in the theaters? And when they left, when the Protestant Film Office shut down in 65, it went from 100% what would have been G-rated films to 82% R-rated films within 3 years. We went from The Sound of Music, the first X-rated ultra-violent movie within 3 years. You went from The Greatest Story Ever Told about Jesus to the first Sex and Satanism film. So when good people retreat from the mission field, that's what happens. Then the same thing happened a little bit later. Actually, when we did one of our galas, we were on Entertainment Tonight. We were talking about violence in the media, and the president at that time of the United States of America decided to call in the theater owners the very next day and told them, you've got to start carding kids so they won't get into R-rated films. Well, kids, according to every study, including Harvard, were the biggest attendees to R-rated film. So in 91, they left. So what happened was that R-rated films went down from 82% of the films to 30% of the films. But PG-13 came along with one of the Indiana Jones films, the second one, and they started dumping the violence into the PG-13. You know, if you're a great writer, you don't need sex and violence to attract an audience. If you're a bad writer, sex and violence becomes your cheap lures. It's like going up to Oregon and throwing a dynamite into the lake to catch fish. You know, you might catch more fish, but you'll kill the lake. So That's what they were doing.
Wow. Interesting scenario. All right. Now, why, Ted, do you think the faith community has abandoned this industry?
Well, they abandoned it for a brief period of time. I mean, when I grew up in the industry, and when I came to Christ through somebody giving me a Bible after financing 5 feature films, including a little bit of Oliver Stone's first film and the films that launched Canon Films, I went to seminary, sorry, and then I was elected head of the organization that did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe on CBS television. We had 37 million viewers, and then we said, how can we reestablish the old church film offices? And when we started, there was one movie with positive Christian content, and 82% of the films were R-rated, and all of that. And we've been chipping away. The best news is that we've increased the number of movies with positive Christian content so much so that the Wall Street Journal about 3 weeks ago came out that there are 15 very strong Christian films coming out next year, including Son of God from Mark Burnett, based on that Bible series, and Noah, and Heaven is for Real, and there are a couple of movies about the Acts of the Apostle. Oh. So we've seen a tremendous change there. There's people who are lazy writers, lazy producers, rely on cheap lures to catch their audience, and we have to do a lot. But part of the process, Perry, and I'm glad you asked me this question, is not just the studios. The church, 140 million people every week go to church. Now, that's not as big as it used to be. It used to be 163 million. So it's drifting downward. But if 140 million people started living like Christians and voting at the box office for a great movie like Frozen that's opening up tomorrow, which is one of the best Disney movies in a long time, instead of voting for ultra-violent movies like Hostel, the good would do better and the ultra-violent would be shut down. So part of the responsibility is parents teaching their kids to be media-wise, and you're doing the job. I mean, you're doing the radio program, the TV program.
Yeah.
When you inform people, if more people were doing what you're doing, Perry,
yeah,
more Christians were saying, hey, it's not that we just want to sneak out and see this new ultra-violent or ultra-sexual film. We're making a vote at the box office. And if we want our kids to be protected, we got to vote for the good and not for the bad. Not because we don't want to, follow the crowd, but because we want to be an influence for the good.
Well, we had a little bit of a test on that, Ted. We were the kind of like the founding area of a film release called The Lost Medallion. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But
we review 100% of the movies that open in 9 theaters or more. So
yeah.
And Alex Kendrick used to be my radio engineer for
really?
5
Okay.
years. So I've known him for years when he was just in 17, 18 years old. So I've known him for years.
Well, we got behind that film up here. In fact, one of its executive directors lives here in the area, and we pushed it pretty hard, got it on the map, and it ended up going like 6 weekends. As you know, the opening weekend's critical. And our little area just really put it on the map. So there is a hunger for some better movies and films out there. And yet, you can't skip across the dial without seeing the language issue, the sex issue, and the gun issue. And it's almost rampant at times.
Well, you did something terrific, and I wish everybody would do that. And we review 100% of the movies, and The Lost Medallion had an ad on Movie Guide for years. Cause, we reach 17 million through our real radio program that we do. We're on the #1 show in New York, a 2-minute drop-in. We reach 6 million a week on Facebook. We reach 90 million of this. You can look up all the numbers by going to one of those sites. But, people tend to say, oh, there's a good faith-based film coming out, whatever it is, like Christmas Candle that came out last week, which is a good film, not great. I mean, it's not Thor, okay? There's not a lot of action and adventure. And a friend of mine who owns a theater chain said, we'll pre-sell tickets to churches for $10 a ticket and they won't show up. And the theater owner makes his money off of the popcorn. Yeah. And I said, they think they're giving a donation. They do not understand that actually getting to the theater, and which is what you said, Perry, is what makes the difference. So you've got to be intentional about this. I'm glad you did that with Lost Medallion. I'm glad you're doing this today. We need to talk about this more often because that's the way we're going to change the culture, is that it's both sides. One side of it is influencing the entertainment industry. We give them awards. We give them a $100,000 prize for movies with faith in it, et cetera, and what we do with MovieGuide.org. But the other side of it is what the people do, because you're voting. You're voting
right.
Just like you vote at the polling poll.
All right. So before we run out of time, can anything be done with the language problem and the violent problem? And I realize at the end of the day, it's going to the movies probably the biggest thing, or not going to the movies the biggest thing. But has the rating system influenced this? I mean, you talked about the PG-13 and how that now was an open door for more violence to come to a younger age.
Well, you've asked a complex question, so I'll try to be simple about it. The rating system is the problem. Before the rating system, when the churches were in Hollywood, you had standards, and the standards were that certainly you had movies about violence. You had 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, you had Bridge Over the River Kwai, but they weren't violence in such a way that the kids would want to copy it, like they do now with some ultra-violent film, like Hostel. You could have sex, but you couldn't have it in such a way. You had plenty of beautiful romances. I was just watching, Top Hat with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. What a great movie that was. But it wasn't done in such a way that salacious people would want to run out and rape some young child. Right. So the key is how you do it. You need conflict. You need drama. This is a big question. We got a lot of articles on MovieGuide.org about it, and I'd love to come on and talk about it again.
All right. Well, I want to get you back. You're a tremendous resource. And Ted, thanks for what you do. And how can people get in? Do you have a website where they can connect with you?
Right. Just go to MovieGuide.org. Make sure you go to .org, because there there are other sites that say Movie Guide. So it's movieguide.org. It's nonprofit. It's a 501c3.
Good.
And we review 100% of the movies. Why? Because we want parents to help their kids know before they go.
That's wonderful. Thanks for your service, my friend. God bless you, and happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. God bless.
All right. We'll be right back.